Hello everyone, and welcome back to Age of Noob. I originally was going to cover the upcoming October balance changes first, but the developers made so many changes to naval combat that I decided to cover the topic in a standalone video first. Hence, I'm going to be looking at the massive list of changes coming to the water units and summarize them for you folks to get a better understanding on what's to come. Also, there are quite a few typos and mistakes in the patch notes versus what's on the pup build, and I've ensured that I'm giving you the right data that will eventually go live. Alright, without further ado, let's hit the sails and dive right in. You can pretty much forget about almost everything you knew about water gameplay, as tons have changed. Let's start with the macro changes first, then explore specific changes right after. Number 1. Each class of ship now shares the same stats, so this means that a Bauchuan and a Carrack are both equal in cost and power. The devs mentioned that they do intend to add ship variations back in the future, but they wanted to establish a foundation first given the massive changes to come. Number 2. The Springald ship and the Incendiary ship are both moved to the feudal age for all civilizations. This means that the classic rock paper scissors counter system now starts from the feudal age onward. Also, the counter system is a lot harsher now, but I'll get back into the details on which ship counters which later in the video. Number 3. Since the Castle Age no longer unlocks ships anymore, numerous tiering upgrades were added for all civilizations. Each ship type has a Castle Age and Imperial Age upgrade available to it, as well as the new Armored Hull and Shipwrights upgrades which improve the health and armor of all ships. Number 4. Ship costs have been changed across the board, including adding a food cost to archer ships and warships. This does shake things up from an eco perspective, as setting up ship production will now be more akin to that of land units, in which you have to plan for an eco switch alongside your military switch to sustain production. Number 5. Ships are also generally cheaper and train faster than before, meaning that you can field more units faster and earlier in the game. Hence, the ramp-up time in water will be lower, and adjustments were made to the movement speed and turn rates of the ships to make them feel more responsive on the water. In a nutshell, water gameplay should feel significantly more fluid than before. Apart from these main 5 macro changes, some other minor changes were introduced as well, namely ships no longer cancelling a garrison command upon colliding with another unit, ships no longer being able to sail under bridges, and fishing deposits being more reliably selected as well. Okay, now that we've covered the macro changes, let's look at each ship type individually and dissect all adjustments. The changes are abundant, so bear with me as I walk through all of them. Fishing ships can now see into stealth fog on water like a scout, has its line of sight set to 14 tiles, and has speech lines play when commanded to fish. Some nice changes, but nothing major here. Trade ships get an enormous buff. Their wood cost is now 1/3 of what it used to be, down to 100 wood from the previous 300. Its creation time is halved to 30 seconds from the original 60, but its health is decreased slightly from 300 to 225. Also, a bug where trade ships were receiving armor upgrades from the blacksmith is also fixed. Now, this is a buff on the larger theme of improving trade in the game, a topic that I will cover in the upcoming balance video, but I'm unsure if these buffs will still be enough to make water trade viable. It's definitely a step in the right direction that awaits some playtesting. Transport ships get only one change, and it's a nerf to their HP. Their health is reduced from 600 to 400. Archer ships, namely the War Galley, the Light Junk, the Dhow, and the Hunting Canoe, get a long list of changes. Regarding its cost, it will take 90 food, 150 wood, and no gold to build each one. It will take 25 seconds to build and will take up 3 population space. Its health will be 300 HP, range armor 1, sight range 12, move speed 1.7 tiles per second, turn rate 330, range 6.5 tiles, and attack speed 1.5 seconds. Its base damage will be 6 with a bonus damage of 18 versus Incendiary ships. They will also now shoot 5 arrows in a single burst which will scatter towards the target location. This means that if all arrows hit their target, the archer ship will deal 30 damage apiece. I tested its accuracy and it's alright. You should have no problem targeting ships since they have a larger footprint, but you will definitely miss many arrows when targeting much smaller units on land such as villagers, so keep that in mind. Springald ships, namely the Hulk, the Boglaw, the War Junk, the Lodya Springald ship, and the War Canoe have numerous changes as well. First, as mentioned before, it's moved from the Castle Age to the Feudal Age. Also, its class has changed to Springald ship from Attack ship. Regarding its cost, it will take 120 food, 200 wood, and 30 gold to build each one. It will take 30 seconds to build and will take up 3 population space. Its health will be 450, ranged armor 3, attack speed 4.12 seconds, move speed 1.25 tiles per second, turn rate 185, and range 6. It will have a base damage of 35 and a bonus damage of 40 versus archer ships and plus 45 versus buildings. Also, their firing canoe angle is reduced so they turn almost 90 degrees to shoot now. And more importantly, the spin to win micro mechanic is also removed, as both sides of the ship will share the same weapon cooldown. Speaking of micro though, it now has a man the sails ability, which allows the ship to move 40% faster for 10 seconds or until it enters combat, whichever is first. And finally, they will now correctly chase enemies who move out of range, as they will get slightly closer than the maximum distance to account for the time it takes to turn to take the shot. Incendiary ships, or otherwise known as the demo ships, also get quite a few changes. As the one before, it also moved from the Castle Age to the Feudal Age. Regarding its cost, it will take 80 wood and gold to build each one. It will take only 15 seconds to train and will take up 2 population space. Its health is set to 145 HP, but it will still have no armor of any kind. Its movement speed is set to 2 tiles per second, rotation rate from 260 to 330, attack set to 95, and bonus attack of 300 versus both broadside ships and buildings. The devs also mentioned that attack move with incendiary ships now works properly and that the detonation versus ships moving away from them should deal the damage more reliably. As usual, we'll have to wait for the playtesting to confirm how they perform. Warships, namely the Carrack, the Baoshuan, and the Zebek get their own set of changes too. Regarding its cost, it will take 200 wood, food, and gold to build each one. Its health is set to 700, and it will take 5 population space, down from 6. Its base damage is set to 40, but a burst of 3 cannons will be fired per attack. It will also have a bonus damage of 70 versus buildings. Its movement speed is set to 1.25 tiles per second, attack range to 9 tiles, and its damage type change from range to siege. As is the case with the Springald ships as well, warships will no longer be able to spin to win, as both sides of the ship now share the same weapon cooldown. The French unique ship, the Galleass, will also receive changes. Regarding its cost, the patch notes as of the 18th of September are wrong, as it will take 360 wood and 300 gold to build each one. Its health is set to 700, but its population space will remain unchanged at 5. Its base damage is set to 130 ranged attack with no bonus damage to anything else. It will also have a range of 8 and a slow movement speed of only 1 tile per second. There's technically one more unique unit in the game now, and that's the new Ottoman Grand Galley. This ship is actually pretty unique due to its military school ability, but as a standalone ship itself, it will cost 150 food, 360 wood, and 300 gold. It will take 50 seconds to build each one out, and will take up 5 population space. It has 750 HP, no base armor whatsoever, and a whopping 9.5 tile range for its cannon that shoots from the front. Its base damage is 35, but it will shoot 3 cannons worth of 105 damage in total. It's bugged currently in the public update preview, but the devs are aware of this issue. Like the French Galleass, it has also a very slow movement speed of only 1 tile per second. I'll cover this ship more in depth in my Ottoman civilization review. Okay, so that was a lot of stats. Let's summarize all of that in a nice table to compare them quickly before going into the counter system. The only ships that do not have food in their cost are the incendiary ships for all civilizations and the Galleass for the French. Every other ship now has a food component. That said, the only quote-unquote trash unit now is the archer ship, as it no longer requires any gold to train. This is very similar to that of the feudal age archers and the spearmen on land now. Training times for the archer and Springald ships are very similar, but you can train twice as many incendiary ships in the same time, so keep that in mind if you have a lot of broadside ships. Warships, Galleasses, and Grand Galleys are sluggish as usual, taking between 50 to 60 seconds to train. It's easy to remember the population spaces as well, as irregular ships take 3, Incendiary 2, and the large expensive ones all at 5. HP is also intuitive, with all the large ships being around 700, and the Springald ship being 50% more than that of the archer ship. Do keep in mind that the Warship and the Springald ship are the only ones with notable ranged armor. It also means that receiving any ranged attacks from the shoreline is still Warship's forte. Movement speed is also pretty intuitive, with the exception of Warships, as they are still 25% faster than the 2 unique ships of the French and the Ottomans. And finally, archer ships slightly outrange the Springald ships by half a tile, while the larger ships have a range of 8 or above, so keep that in mind. Okay, so how does the rock, paper, scissors formula work now? Well, in the early to mid game, archer ships, although admittedly requiring a bit of micro, counter incendiary ships counter Springald ships, and Springald ships counter archer ships. This is due to the hard-coded bonus damages mentioned previously, with 18 bonus damage applied per arrow totaling 108 damage to incendiary ships by the archer ones, 300 bonus damage applied to the Springald ships by the incendiary ones, and 40 damage applied to the archer ships by the Springald ones. And yes, the core of the naval engagement will consist of these 3 main units. That said, when we introduce the larger warships, as well as the 2 unique ships of the French Galleass and the Ottoman Grand Galley into this equation, the only bonus damage mechanic here is that of the incendiaries versus the warships, as they are still considered broadside ships. Hence, incendiary ships also take down warships pretty effectively if they can detonate in range. The Galleass and the Grand Galley aren't as straightforward. Archer ships will get completely wrecked by them, as they get so heavily outranged, outgunned, and outlasted by the larger ships. The same applies to the incendiaries. Because they have no bonus damage against those ships, it would not be cost effective to trade, and that's assuming you can even get close to them with their massive 8 to 9.5 tile range. Springald ships, though, are interesting. Although they still get heavily outranged by the Galleass and the Grand Galley, they do have the new Man the Sails ability, which should help them close the gap. Their speed exceeds 1.9 tiles per second with the ability, so that's almost twice as fast as the Galleass and the Grand Galley. Hence, if you can outnumber your opponent 2 to 1 and micro down their ships, you should be able to take advantage of Lanchas' law and take down your opponent's navy. That said, do keep in mind that if they mix some incendiary ships of their own, you'll have to have archer ships supporting your Springald ships or you're toast. Hence, based on my very early assessment on purely stats and no unique upgrades or bonuses, Springald ships, with some micro, are a very soft counter to the Galleass and the Grand Galley. That said, decent players will never only mass either unique ship on their own though, so don't expect this purely one-on-one matchup a lot in your games. Okay, there are two more aspects that we still need to go through, one of which is changes to buildings and siege. The Dock's health is now set to 2000, ship healing per second is reduced from 5 to 3, and Docks now have the ability to obtain a new defensive arrow emplacement. This emplacement costs 100 stone and 50 wood, deals 35 range damage, has a whopping 11 tile range, reloads in 3.5 seconds, and is available from the Feudal Age onward. Also, docks are apparently now easier to place on shorelines across all maps, so that's a good sign. That said, arrow slits from regular outposts, garrison arrows, and keep arrows all do 15 less damage now, down to 10 from 25 bonus damage. Trebuchets and culverins also do less bonus damage as well, down to 200 and 100 bonus damage respectively. And finally, we need to cover the technologies. In the Feudal Age, you can get the naval arrow slits and extended lines. We've just discussed the first technology, and extended lines does get a buff. It will no longer cost food, as it requires 75 wood and 175 gold to research in 30 seconds. As usual, it will increase the gathering rate of fishing ships by 20% and carry capacity by 15%. In the Castle Age, you unlock drift nets, whose food cost is also replaced. It will cost 150 wood and 300 gold now to be researched in 45 seconds, and it further increases the speed of fishing ships by 10%, which wasn't there before. Armored hull and shipwrights both increase the tankiness of your ships the same way, increasing their HP by 20% and ranged armor by 1. The first will cost you 200 food and 500 gold in 45 seconds, and the latter 300 food and 550 gold in 50 seconds. You also do get extra hammocks, which increases the number of arrows fired by archer ships by 1. Springald Cruise, which provides +1 range and 20% faster attack speed for Springald ships, and Incendiaries, which gives 20% more explosion range for demo ships in the Castle Age as well. In the Imperial Age, you can research Heated Shot, which allows archer ship arrows to light enemy ships on fire, dealing damage over time. Swivel Cannon, which gives Springald ships an additional cannon that can fire from any angle, and Explosives, which is already known to give additional damage to Incendiaries. Regarding civilization unique technologies, the Ottomans get the Imperial Fleet technology, which increases the production speed of gunpowder ships by 15%, and their movement speed by 15% as well for a very cheap cost. The Malians get canoe tactics in the Castle Age that allows archer ships to fire 3 additional javelin weapons, also for a relatively cheap cost. The English retain their usual Admiralty technology, but with adjusted stats that increases the range of combat ships by 1. The Chinese get the Thunderclap bombs in the Imperial Age, which, funnily enough, gives warships the ability to fire a Nefsa Bee's attack. The French get long guns in the Castle Age that increases the damage of naval cannons by 10%. The Holy Roman Empire gets fire stations, which allows military ships to regenerate 1 health every 2 seconds when out of combat. The Mongols get piracy in the Feudal Age that works akin to their raiding bonus, as it provides 25 wood and gold for every enemy ship sunk. The Rus retain their adaptable hulls in the Castle Age that allows their Lodya ships to convert 50% faster and without penalty, but also get mounted guns in the Imperial Age, which converts their Springald ships' weaponry to cannons for increased damage and range. The Delhi Sultanate gets manuscript trade in the Dark Age, allowing scholars to garrison docks to provide 20% faster production speed and contribute to global research. And finally, the Abbasid dynasty gets teak masts in the Castle Age, that increases the movement speed of their military ships by 10%. Basically, every civilization has some sort of unique technology to tap into in various stages of the game, and after some balanced patches, should add more flavor to the usual rock paper scissors formula that is going to be implemented. Well, that wraps up our summary of the massive naval rework that's coming to Age of Empires 4 later in October. There's obviously more nuance with individual civilization bonuses and how each additional unique technology plays into the naval matchups, but those will require videos of their own to explore them individually. For now, the info in this video should be enough to get you started on high tides. Now that this topic is also broadly covered, I will finally be able to circle back on the remaining balance changes, so be sure to like and subscribe to not miss out on more Age of Empires content. As always, thanks for watching everyone, be sure to try out some water or hybrid maps in Season 3, and see you all in the next one.